Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about Biden and why commentators aren't always super supportive of him and how that came to be. Because there's been a number of questions along this line lately, but this one kind of sums it up the best. Serious question. What about Biden is so objectionable? I seriously don't get it. For the Dems, he's done nothing but slowly deliver on every promise. Okay, so a lot of this is based on commentary from people on YouTube. The first thing to understand is that many of the people who are perceived to be Dems or liberals on YouTube, they're not liberals, they're leftists. If they are leftists, there is nothing that Biden can do that will make them completely happy with him. A liberal is somebody who, loosely here, is somebody who is socially progressive and wants everybody to kind of get a fairer shake within capitalism. They still support capitalism. A leftist does not support capitalism. Biden supports capitalism, therefore leftists, there will always be an issue there. There's nothing that Biden can do that will completely make him okay with leftists, with actual leftists. A lot of the people who are perceived to be dim or liberal commentators on YouTube are actually leftists. So there's always going to be that little piece of it there. So the commentators, when they're talking about him, he never is going to go far enough because he's not a leftist. Despite what Republicans say, Biden is definitely not a leftist. So you're always going to have that issue. The other thing is that a whole lot of people, myself included, they didn't really have high expectations of Biden. If you were around prior to the election, especially during the primary, pretty much any time I talked about him, I was like, yeah, he's not my man. Like, I felt the need to clarify that. Sure, better than Trump, but this is not my guy. Now, realistically, if you are being objective, he has done way better than I think anybody who had that opinion thought he was going to do. It's at the point for me, I don't feel the need to clarify every time I say his name that he's not actually my guy. Because, yeah, not perfect, but nowhere near as bad as I thought he was going to be. I honestly expected him to kind of restore an era similar to George Bush Jr. That's actually what I was anticipating. I did not have high hopes. So the green energy stuff that he's done, the infrastructure stuff that he's done, the attempts for student debt, all of the stuff that he has done, to me, is way above what I thought he was going to do. So I'm pleasantly surprised by the guy. However, on this channel, we don't generally talk about politicians. I mean, we do, but we use them more to personify ideas. So I never came out and was like, yeah, Biden's going to be horrible, right? He's better than Trump, but he's just going to be an abject failure. I was more like, yeah, he's status quo. Don't forget that. But it was never me coming out and telling y'all that he was just going to be just absolutely horrible. There are a lot of commentators who did that. And if you come out and tell your audience that the person is just going to be right-wing and George Bush Jr., and they turn out to enact some relatively progressive ideas. Again, not leftist ideas, but again, better than what you were expecting. It might be hard for some people to be like, yeah, okay, so I was kind of wrong about him. He's not great, but he's nowhere near as bad as I thought he was going to be. I think that plays into it a lot. Then for some people, it's simply his age. It is simply his age and nothing else. Then there are people who want him to be able to do things with a pen stroke that aren't really things that can be done with a pen stroke in our system. And they're not happy with it. That's the commentator side of it. That's why there are people who are objecting to Biden in general. Then you have the other side of it. The Democratic Party is horrible at messaging. They're not as shameless as Republicans when it comes to touting their wins. Right now, there's a map that shows, like it's a map of the U.S., and it has all of these dots on it, showing where money is going. That is really because of Biden's infrastructure pushes. Why that isn't like a meme on every Democratic page, I will never know. Because it shows how much he was actually able to accomplish on that front. There's a lot of stuff like that. They're just not good at touting their own wins the way they should be. They're still very much operating under the idea that, playing from the high ground and all of that stuff. So a lot of the information, especially when it comes to Biden and things are slow rolling, because, and you said it, slowly deliver. It does move slowly. And his administration does not tout when it starts. They don't come out and say, look what we did, when nothing has happened yet. They wait for some kind of evidence that it worked. Like they just did this with the Inflation Reduction Act. But even that, it didn't get the play it should on social media. So it creates this image of Biden as, yeah, better than Trump, and he's done some stuff. He hasn't been an active harm, but we could do much better. Okay? I believe that we could do much better as a country. But as far as electability and all of that stuff, you have to factor all of that in. My angle when it comes to my personal view of utopia, it is way outside the Overton window. So somebody who would totally align with me, they'd never get elected. And a lot of people, they are ideology based. They're ideologues, and they don't want to compromise. And I want to be clear about that. The world needs those people. Those people who are uncompromising. You have to have them, because otherwise there is no push. There's nobody pulling the Overton window in the right direction towards progress. So even though from a pragmatic standpoint, I would like at least a few of them to be like, yeah, okay, so he's not as horrible as we thought he was going to be. I think I might be disappointed if some of them did. Because their job, if that's the type of channel that they're running, if that's the type of commentary they're providing, their job is to make sure that the next generation looks at me as a conservative. That's what they want. And I think that's a pretty worthwhile goal. I don't want to come down on that. It's the way it should be. They're planning for the future. My commentary is more about now and how to develop infrastructure to change the future. They're talking about the ideas of the future. And when you compare Biden to the ideas of the future, well, he doesn't measure up. That's where the objections come from. Remember, the Democratic Party is a coalition party. Liberals, progressives, centrists, and leftists get lumped in. But understand, leftists aren't happy about it. And that's where most of that commentary comes from. The Democratic Party could do a much better job of getting their wins out there. That is one of their big issues. I was really hoping that they were going to roll really hard with the Dark Brandon thing. And every time he did something, those memes would be everywhere. That's not the Democratic Party, you know. But the real hang-up is the divisions between leftists and liberals and the Social Democrats and all of the different factions within the Democratic Party that look at Biden as like the most conservative part of the Democratic Party. And in some ways he is. That's not completely inaccurate. But when you look at his climate stuff, you know, somebody's going to say it's not enough, I'm sure, in the comments. And they're right. It should be more. But it's the art of the possible type of thing. So that's why you have that disconnect. Biden, if you took people's predictions, to include mine, about what he was going to be, and compared it to what he has done, he has far exceeded expectations. But for a lot of people, it's still not enough. That's where the hang-up comes in. We're at a point where the Democratic Party is going to have to kind of lurch forward and become much more progressive. The people who are seen as the far left, quote, inside the Democratic Party, first, the overwhelming majority of them are not actually left, much less far left. But that faction, within the next 10 years, that's going to have to become the center of the Democratic Party, because younger people are far more progressive and they want it now. They're tired of waiting. That's what it boils down to. It's the expectation of what he was going to be versus what he's actually been able to accomplish. A lot of people being ideologically opposed to capitalism, and then some people just not wanting to admit that he isn't as bad as they thought he was going to be. It's really that. And then you top that all off with the Democratic Party having less than ideal messaging efforts. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.